You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast.
Welcome to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Its purpose is to look into the horror films, dissecting them one screen legend and franchise at a time. Our podcast subject for this episode is once more venturing into what we call the full moon sessions. And yes, you're right, the name is a big giveaway. We're looking at all things lycanthrope. And the last two sessions, we've been particularly looking at the Howling franchise. And we're going to keep with that pace right now by looking at the third installment, which was called Howling 3, The Marsupials. What can we say? What can we say about this from the get-go? It is directed by Philip Moyer again, who directed the second film. And so he does return to this one. It is an Australian set film. I think the only way that we're going to be able to tackle this one is to, just as we usually do, go through the plot line. So before we go into that, in order to dissect these movies, we tend to gather a group of horror aficionados. It's sometimes two, sometimes it's three of us. And this is no exception. So first up, there's yours truly. I'm the lead surgeon. My name's Paul Farrell, and I basically open up the theatre and the discussion group to talk around these films. Joining me for this particular episode, as is with the other full moon sessions, is Nick Alford. Nick.
Hello.
Hello,
How are you,
mate? I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. I tell you what, I can't wait to hear your synopsis at the start of this. I've just been sitting here listening to you going, how is he going to explain this movie in a paragraph?
Yeah, I think like the only way that we're going to really be able to tackle this one is to actually just talk through the plot line, and we'll talk around it as we go. I know it's slightly different because I normally try and explain the movie at the beginning, and then we go into the plot line. But it's such a unique film. And it's
unique, that's one word for it.
In its own right, that it's kind of hard to surmise it. I mean, maybe I should kind of just mention at the beginning, like maybe try and break it down a little bit. As I said, it is an Australian horror sequel to the Howling franchise. It's got Barry Otto in it. There's an appearance from Dame Edna Everage towards the end. So they kind
couple of berries.
Couple of berries, yeah. And it does definitely feel like an Australian film, and even to the point where the National Film and Sound Archive out here in Australia. So for those that aren't familiar, they're a place that does exactly that. They kind of restore old films and digitally enhance and raise the quality again to try and kind of breathe new life into these old films. They actually did that for this particular film last year, and gave it the full treatment, and it's now officially in the libraries of the National Film and Sound Archive in Sydney. So I'm just trying to think of how do you wrap up such or describe this film? It does lean away from what we know as the lycanthrope mythology, and by placing it in Australia, it looks at a completely different wild animal, and in this instance, it ties it very closely to the Tasmanian tiger.
And it also sort of makes its own, like a lot of the Howling, it kind of makes its own set of rules how they can change whenever they want. And,
yeah.
And in this one, bites don't seem to affect people either, which seemed weird.
Yeah, there is a point where Barry Otto does say something about there was no transfusion or because he gets bitten at one point, but he says he kind of scoffs it off and says, "Oh, it's okay. There was no."
But that's weird. Yeah, that's exactly it. He says he's disproving his own. He says it has to be through saliva, and he's just been bitten.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what do you think that is around your neck, mate? That's.
I know. I'm invincible. I'm Barry Otto. I'm going to come back and be the quirky father in Strictly Ballroom. So it's all.
Oh yeah, that's what I know him from. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I think, in all honesty, I think the only way to tackle this is to actually delve into the plot line and talk through it, and we'll make our comments along the way. I will add though that it is supposed to be based on Gary Brandner's Howling trilogy novels, the third installment. But like the last film, the connection is just not there. It's not
non-existent.
It doesn't match up at all. Other than like there is a bit of a similar kind of, I guess, a sympathetic view from the werewolf point of view, which is in keeping with this. But that's about it. There's not a lot. Well, that's it. There's no. It's set in America as well for a start. So moving the location and giving it the whole Australian, as Australian as you can get in a horror film, it's there.
But that premise is still good though. The initial premise of this film, like without talking about the plot yet.
Yeah.
The premise of the film is interesting because they're taking the Tasmanian tiger, or however they want to describe it. It's got a name that sounds like a venereal disease, syphilis, or like I can't remember what it's called now.
Of the actual tiger, it's thylacine. Is that
That's
right?
it. Yeah, thylacine. Yeah, it sounds like a drug.
It does. Hey man, just got myself some thylacine.
But do you know what I mean? That premise is good. It's a nice twist, And
I like it. Yeah.
There's werewolves in other countries that a Russian wolf is
Yeah, there's a Russian kind of
to an Australian one.
Yes, that's exactly right. And I like, you're right, that I like that opening up that mythology and exploring it and stamping your own mark on it, if you will. And we'll reserve judgment on what we think of the film until we get to the end of the discussion, I think. But yeah, it's as I said, unique is the word that springs to mind without giving too much away as we delve into the plot line.
Which plot line are you going for there?
I don't know. Whichever
there are about 12 of them.
Okay, so all right, so let's. I'm just going to fire up my notes. Here we go. So let's look at that. So the first thing we see are like it looks like this old kind of cine film. Of these indigenous people standing around a dead wolf, or like a wolf man tied to a tree, which seems a little bit kind of odd at the beginning. I mean, it's very, it feels a bit. You question a bit. Where is this going? Because immediately after that, you're then taken to a place called Leovik in Siberia. It's
really, I don't remember that.
yeah, it's the one where you kind of said the Russian thing, but it's in Siberia, and there's a man screaming as he runs up to the wooden kind of like a wooden cabin, but it's locked, and then he kind of runs towards camera and then screams. You don't remember that?
I thought I had this film in my mind, but I do not remember that scene at all. I'm not saying you're lying. I just don't remember it.
No, it's fine, man. It's our recollection of it. It's just, but it's only a short scene at the beginning, and it sows the seeds of the Russian dancer later on.
Right. Okay.
So, and then we go to the what is called the NIA in the States, and they're talking about this report and various kind of sightings in Russia and Siberia of these wolf attacks. Before then, we kind of finally settle on our lead character, Barry Otto's character. And I should probably look up his name. What's his name? He's Harry Beckmeyer. And he's been studying like Australian anthropology for a while. And he lectures in universities and the like. So we meet him as he is describing the indigenous scene that I mentioned at the front of the film, where they're dancing. Well, not dancing. They're standing around the wolf man figure that's tied to a tree, and he describes how this is the only surviving footage from his father. He was also studied anthropology. I can never say that word, anthropology.
There you go.
Yeah, got there. Woohoo! So you can kind of tell that it's something that he's kind of haunted by the loss of his father in some kind of obscure way, and there's this kind of references to lycanthrope within there. Is the thing real? and that's what he's questioning within the in the lecture room. And that kind of wraps up that. So we're trying to get an insight into his character a little bit. The next scene is really the first of odd sequences that happens, right?
Jump to.
So it goes to a swimming pool scene where Barry Otto's character, I keep forgetting his name, Harry, is talking to the President of the United States.
See, that's what threw me, because when he's in the lecture hall, he's like, I'm going to talk to the president. I'm like, do you mean the president of the university or the college or whatever? And no, you mean the American president.
That's right. But that's not the weird part. The weird part is the weird fourth wall moment where they break the fourth wall and say, oh, what's this camera doing here? As they're talking. And it's the only time they do it.
Only time, and you also pull out to a wide, and there's no cameraman.
And there's no cameraman. Yeah. It was so strange at that point. Anyway, as I said, it was the first of many strange things that occur in this movie.
You've really got to pay attention to this film when you're watching it. I had to watch it in 3 separate installments because I was like, I need to process what's happening.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm like, okay, is this a different film each time I started it?
It does feel that way. It jumps around a heck of a lot. Yeah. So but at that point, we definitely at the swimming pool scene we get from Harry that he believes that werewolves exist. And then he goes and he goes and talks to his friend, who's like this other kind of investigative kind of.
Cop or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's hard to pinpoint what he does, but he knows the right kind of officials, put it that way. So he's talking to this guy about it's shot from it looks like it's shot from Milson's Point, over the top of on one of the taller buildings there overlooking the bridge, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And that scene just really only serves a purpose of just introducing who this guy is, essentially, that he's talking to.
And that they're in Australia.
And they're in Australia, yeah.
The harbour bridge behind you, and it's okay, we get it, we know who you are now.
Back in Australia, yeah.
Yeah, because they were really in America before.
Yeah. You could tell. And then we kind of meet, with the guy that's so trying to do an American accent, but you could tell he's Australian. Anyway. Then we kind of cut to a bush scene. So, the native landscape out here in Australia is called the bush. And we meet a woman called Jaboa, who's our lead female character in this. And she's taken before, the leader of the group. So, there are all these kind of, hermit kind of characters that are living kind of out in the bush. Before then, she kind of, doesn't want to get sexually he's sexually kind of quite forward with her, and it sounds like he's got a lot of female mates, and she doesn't want to bar of it, so she kind of, I want to say she needs him in the happy sack and then runs off. Anyway, but she basically kind of gets on the bus, and there's this weird slightly off comical moment with a priest,
the worst actor in the world.
Yeah.
Because for me, that scene as well, when it's not very clear if she runs away, because she sort of says, "Oh, last time, he was hard or something brutal."
Yes.
Then she sort of runs off, but there's no chase. She's suddenly then on a bus.
Yes.
And it's like, is this a cut scene? Have I missed something?
No.
Yeah, it's really odd, and the best part is where the priest is sort of giving her a hard time, saying you shouldn't run away from home.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then she and then she kind of just basically tells him that she's a werewolf, and cue facial expression deadpan straight down into the camera.
Yeah.
Almost like a Benny Hill-esque kind of moment. It's very.
It's pretty nonchalant, just saying, "Oh, and my stepfather raped me."
Yeah,
and then. Moving on. Awkward bus journey ensues.
Yeah, still another 3-hour bus ride following after that before she gets into Sydney.
Do you like a biscuit?
Oh dear. Anyway, then, and so the next scene, it's morning, and we meet this character, this guy who's in a flashy car pulling up. His name's Donnie, and
Donnie.
Oh, Donnie, and he sees Jerboa in the park, and he's instantly enamored by her.
To the point of chasing her down and backing her into a corner.
Exactly. At which point she freaks out a bit, but he just...
As you would.
And he just reassures her that he's an assistant director. It's okay, I'm an assistant director.
Oh, in that case.
And he wants to hire her as an actor for this film, which happens to be a werewolf film that's being shot just down the road. In Hyde Park, it looked like, actually.
Yeah, what is it called? Something from Uranus,
no, that's the movie.
It came from Uranus.
Yeah, that's the movie they go and see. Yeah, it's called something like. Oh, I should have written this down, but it's like the 8th installment of it. Anyway, it's like Howler's 8 or something.
It's something like that. Yeah.
And then so she kind of believes him, as you do, and then we cut back to three of the women from the clan. And they're dressed as nuns on the bus.
Yeah. As
they go in search of Jerboa. And there's a weird bit where one of them just kind of does like this growly kind of snap thing at the kid.
Because they talk about their sense of smell, because you have no idea who these people are. You've come from a bush, a bush commune, if you like. Yeah. Then suddenly these 3 nuns appear and they're her sisters or something. And they have a great sense of smell, and it's really odd. I'm going to stop saying it's odd because I say it the whole bloody time, but it is. It's
strange. So then we go back to on the film set. So the film within a film. So there's a film being shot, and there's this guy who is either meant to be Hitchcock or is a salute to Hitchcock. Looks exactly like him, and anyway, so even with mannerisms as well.
Well, he's another Mad Max guy as well, like Jerboa's stepdad. They're both sort of ex-Mad Max guys.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And they so he's then he basically hires her on the spot, essentially Jerboa on the spot, and kind of she's a bit bitchy and a bit fierce with him, but he just likes that, as you do. Then Jerboa and Donnie go to see this movie at the cinema because she kind of mentions she's never seen a scary film before, so he takes her to see this film called It Came from Uranus.
Subtle.
Yeah. It's a spoof movie, that they go and see, and there's a point in that where this guy is doing this. There's a pretty full-on kind of werewolf transformation scene that happens in that, where he's got these kind of like almost like these blisters or bubbles forming on his face, which kind of looks. I mean, it looks. I say it looks good. It looks good as far as like what it's meant to be. This B horror kind of schlocky kind of film. It's definitely.
It looks good for this movie.
Yeah, for a film called It Came from Uranus, it looks good.
Yeah, and you can tell they spent some time on it, obviously, because if you watch the trailer, that sequence features quite heavily.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was just put in so they could stick it in the trailer or show something different.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, though, when the werewolf is there, is it this one or where it kind of just looks like a bit of a puppet with the snapping of the.
Yeah, a lot of them look like that.
Yeah.
Well, because that song also featured in. I just watched Kong Skull Island.
Oh yeah.
And it also featured in there, and it seemed a bit random. But.
I've heard there's a lot of. I haven't seen that yet, but I've heard there's a lot of nods to horror films of yesteryear in it.
Yeah, kind of. I think it's just cheap rip-offs, really.
Okay.
Don't get me started.
No, we'll save that for your review.
Yeah.
Go on, you tell them where people can find you.
Oh, if you're interested in hearing the review, it's Kong Skull Island. You can watch it at soisitanygood.com. You can watch our review there.
So yeah, we get this cover of Bad Moon Rising, and there's Jerboa and Donnie in bed. And there's a bit where she says, it's not the full moon that turns you. So again, hinting that she's not of the same species as Donnie. They then make love, and then in the morning, Donnie discovers the scar on her Jerboa's stomach, her hairy stomach.
I was going to say, as well as the rest of it. Yeah. And he's sweating up a storm.
He is.
It looks like he's been for a swim.
Maybe he did.
And then the downy, fluffy hair is just... it's bizarre.
I love it. And then we're... so then it again changes tack again. Because we're then... we're given a hint of where they're going to change tack. And that we're informed of a Russian dancer that's defected to Australia.
Which feels so random at the time.
It does. It makes sense as we go through the movie.
And maybe if I'd have remembered the Russian bit at the start, that probably would have helped too. Then, okay, there's a connection there. But you've gone from this sort of love scene kind of thing, and there's a story of the girl, and there's cut to Russian ballet dancer.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know what to say. It's just it's various trips all in one movie sitting. We then go to like an after party from the film Wrap.
Oh God!
And there's this at the party. They're all kind of dressed up in scary outfits and stuff. But the flash.
Didn't you want to see Christopher Lee in the background wearing his glasses?
Oh, I so wanted to.
from the second one.
That's right. It's very reminiscent of that, actually. It's the same director, so that makes sense that using a bit of a similar thing. Maybe that's the kind of parties that Philip Moira goes to. It's his scene. Anyway, so there's these flashing lights that are going off, which kind of set Jerboa off a bit, as we learn that flashing lights kind of can bring on transformation. Almost a bit like how, I guess, can bring on epileptic fits. I think they mention that in the movie, actually. And then, but then there's a moment with Donnie and Jerboa that just start making out randomly, like behind where one of the sets are. And then she runs off with Donnie in pursuit. At the same time as they've gone off, the three, I'm calling them nun wolves, turn up at the after party, and then all hell breaks loose. We never actually see what they do. We just see people running out screaming. And then we kind of cut to like Donnie's running. He's still trying to chase after Jerboa, but he's kind of lost sight of her, and then he catches up with her, and we find out that she's been knocked down by a car and then taken into hospital.
Oh, yeah.
At which point we then go to the hospital scene, which has Bill Collins, who is...
I did spot him. I thought that was really weird. He's an Australian movie critic, for those who don't know.
Yeah, he's been around, from a British point of view, he's probably been around as long as how Barry Norman was, very kind of integral to the film reviewing scene. They were in the hospital scene, as I said, and they discover that Jerboa is not as she seems, but they also discover that they think she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And fast metabolism? I don't know if that's the right word, but it's growing at an exponential rate. But they can assess that she would have only been pregnant within the last couple of hours.
Which science, just who knows?
Yeah.
We've come across this unnatural phenomenon that's the first time anyone's ever seen it. But let's say it can only be his.
Yeah, exactly. So one's there. So then we get this weird dream, alien-esque moment. Jerboa is dreaming, and there's like a weird kind of creature kind of comes out of her stomach, and then she and Donnie just start screaming at it, then screaming at each other. And it's really kind of like it almost feels like the director's gone, I just want you to just take the piss and have fun with this bit, because it's bizarre.
And that's the underlying thing about this whole movie that's a bit. Is it taking the piss? I don't think it. I think there are moments where it does, but it's. Yeah. I don't think he's in a position to parody when he's actually making a crap movie as well.
Yes.
I almost feel like he thinks he's making high art, and he's like, I'm going to throw in a few little nods in here and
Yeah.
some jokes, but it's actually all right down here anyway.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's exactly right. So there's yet another curious moment that unfolds in this movie. We're going to try and come up with other words for strange and weird and odd as we go through this. Then we get to the nun wolves who are waiting outside the hospital, and they're kind of sat there as I can't remember. Is it Donnie that walks past them, walking out, and they just happen to be sitting there, and they kind of do this whole look up at the at the hospital, and then they go in to the hospital, and then we kind of get this point where the cops turn up. So a couple of cops turn up at the hospital, and we get this kind of POV kind of thing following them through, and there's like dead bodies all over the place. Yeah.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah, you kind of see the wake that the nuns have left behind.
Yeah, that's right. And we're going through, and then and there's alarms ringing. There's no sign of Jerboa, and we find out that she's been taken by the nun wolves. And then Donnie kind of arrives, to the scene of the aftermath, and he's told that that she's gone, but not only that she's pregnant, and that he could be the father.
That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Despite that, he doesn't even know she's a werewolf.
He doesn't.
That's still a lot to process.
Yeah. And then we get this thing, like, while he's been told this, we then cut to these American, like, war officials, like, who are, like, listening in on the conversation. As if they're, like, tapping in. And they kind of look at each other and they're making notes and, yeah.
I have no words.
Then we're finally introduced to Russian dancer. So the female ballerina character in it. Anyway, so this Russian ballerina anyway, and she's in the kind of her dressing room with another guy who I just called Eyebrows Man.
That's about all he's got to him.
Yeah. So he somehow can he's got the power of telekinesis. No, not telekinesis. Like psychic kind of. He's got psychic powers, and he can, through her mind, can pick out something that she looks like, almost like she's like a channel or a vessel, and he can pick up what she can. I don't know what am I trying to say. It's like she can.
It's like a mating call kind of thing.
Yeah, and somehow he's able to grab the images in her mind and does a drawing within 3 seconds, and it's of a bald man. And it's we know it from the guy that we met earlier in the bush.
Yeah,
Thilo.
Not the film director.
No, not the film director. But yeah, there was that comical moment where he's twitching his eyebrows as he's tuning in to get the image. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. Right, hold on. That's FM. Just change that. She starts reacting to the drawing in this kind of very over-the-top kind of sexual, I don't know what you would call it, just starts really kind of reacting to the drawing, being quite allured by this picture of a bald man. Then we cut to like these rehearsals, so she's doing like a dance ballet sequence with a few people. She starts going through a physical change and turns into a werewolf. Just coincidentally, Barry Otto, guy that plays Harry, and his friend are there watching the rehearsal, so they see it all unfold.
Yeah, we can move on from that. I'm lost already. On what planet did that ever make sense? Like, it was an exclusive thing. It's not like
there's a bit in it, like right at the very end. So she's like doing like a pirouette, and as she's doing it, she then turns into this werewolf doing a pirouette sequence. And all the dancers run around screaming, except her partner, the dance partner, the male guy, who continues to dance and leaps into her arms to get then devoured and be eaten.
Which for me was a bit of a highlight. That was quite funny. But if this happens, if in a dress rehearsal people take photos apparently a lot using flashes, and
Yeah.
obviously if that's what turned her, or if it was the stage lights. If she's supposed to be this great ballerina, is this the first time she's ever been in this situation?
Yeah.
Or is it just American lights or Australian lights are different to Russian lights?
I didn't think that's what triggered it with her in this. I thought it was her heightened sexual reaction to the mating call that triggered her into turning.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think it was the lights of this bit, because there's no lights going off. It's just on a stage and she's dancing.
Yeah, because I thought, well, if it's the stage lights, then that's stupid.
Yeah.
So, but
what a great choice.
she'd have had that before.
It'd be like becoming a famous actor and then winning an award and having the lights go off and the cameras and spoilers.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
I'll try not to get to that bit, but yeah.
yeah. So then we are taken back into the hospital. This time we've got the Russian dancer in there, and there's a point where so she's tied to the bed, and there's a point where another werewolf turns up, and he's shot and then killed, and we find out that it was Eyebrows Man in werewolf form.
Yeah. I'm trying.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Keep going.
But at which point the Russian dancer then transforms again, and then we get the great scene of a man being thrown from the top of a building.
Right.
To fall down.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's the dummy that falls down.
Oh, it's horrific.
Gets thrown off the top of a building to a track called All Fall Down.
Yes, that subtlety wasn't lost on me. That was.
I love it. Yeah, that was a special moment within the film.
Yes, sorry, because it's the Russian who's in the hospital.
That's right. Yeah. So she has this transformation, and then we're led to believe that she attacks the kind of main policeman or whoever's there, detective, and it's his body that's supposedly thrown off the top of the building. He looks nothing like a real person. He looks like a Guy Fawkes dummy.
Yeah, and I swear they weren't that high up in the building.
That's it.
I swear they're like a couple
How
floors up.
did you get
and
to
then...
the top, the roof?
Yeah.
I'm going to kill you, but first I'm going to take you all the way up these flight of stairs.
Up we go. Come on.
Oh,
Hold the door.
You've changed. You look a bit stuffed.
Oh dear.
Anyway, so then we go back to Harry and his friend who go in pursuit of Jerboa now. So it's like randomly, like we're jumping ahead, like in time period. So Otto and friend go in pursuit. They're in their car, and this area's been cornered off, but they've got like permits that can allow them through. So they've gone by car, and yet as they drive on, we then cut to, we track to Donnie, who's watching them with a pair of binoculars, through a pair of binoculars, and he's gone by foot, and yet he's somehow got there before them.
Yeah.
It's all a bit strange. Timelines don't really kind of work. Anyway, Barry and Barry Otto, Harry, I keep calling him Barry Otto. Harry turns up with his friend at a town called Flow, which is a small town where Jerboa is supposed to be from. And coincidentally, Flow backwards spells wolf.
Yeah, I didn't think of it at the time. I thought it was a stupid place, but then later on, when they actually arrive at the town, you can see the sign from the other side.
Yeah, that's right.
And it clearly says it, yeah.
Wolf, yeah. So when they get there, they meet this guy called Kendi, who's an Aboriginal guy.
One of the stars of the movie, if you ask me.
I think he's awesome in this.
I love him.
He just comes out and just shouts at people whenever he comes into a scene, just to scare them. Yeah. But yeah, I loved his character in this. I got to admit, he was a good laugh. And I guess he was a very kind of a comical character within it, but there was a serious kind of underlining to his character too, which we'll come to. And then we kind of catch up again with Jerboa, and she finds this old shed in which she then gives birth to her little baby marsupial
wolfy
thing,
yeah,
which then crawls up her stomach. you know.
It's
And actually, quite a good bit of effects, I thought.
by the standards of that film.
By the standards of that film, I should have emphasised that.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the better effects that's in that movie. In the movie, but but then it kind of climbs into her pouch.
Just gloss over that one.
We then have the ballerina turn up. I put her name Olga down here, so I must have had her name wrong earlier. She turns up at the camp, so she's somehow gotten out of the hospital, and then she's instantly drawn to the bald guy from the group. So like the Philo character, who's like the alpha male character.
Her stepdad.
Her stepdad.
Jabot's stepdad. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And then we have then Jaboa finally somehow is able to track Donnie down in a cave. And they're reacquainted. She introduces him to the baby, and he's not repulsed. He's quite down with it. He's like, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad he's open-minded, but still.
Yeah. And then,
if he's seen the downy fluff, he may be, maybe she's part werewolf. Okay, if we ever have a kid and over a period of a couple of weeks or a few days, then that would be pretty normal, right?
Yeah. I reckon it's good. So I reckon it's human. It's going to be all right. Then they kind of make off into the bush to kind of make a bit of a getaway and escape. I hope listeners are like, if you just tuned in, we're not on crack. This is this is seriously how
I've seen the film and I still don't know what half of this is about. I still can't keep up. So if you're still with us here, you're brave.
I think we're about the halfway mark at the moment. So Jaboa and Donnie kind of leave through the bush. Then the camp is ascended upon by Australian officials, and the group is rounded up. And at which point, Harry offers to help Olga, the ballerina, through hypnosis. Then we get this we're back in the hospital again, and we get this odd moment again where Harry and his mate are interviewing Thilo, the bald guy, alpha male stepdad. Yeah. And he's just this weird. His performance in this is really odd, because he's doing this weird kind of he's a bit.
The laugh.
Yeah, he's kind of joking around a bit, and he finds the thought of being filmed amusing, and he can see himself in the camera. It's almost like he's never seen himself before. Yeah, yeah, and he's really kid-like in his behaviour in this scene. I don't know whether that was done because what follows on from it is within that scene is that we kind of see a darker side to Harry at this point, where they kind of want to experiment with the flashing lights, and he gets a strobe light out and starts to use the strobe light on Thilo to bring on the transformation,
which he's clearly ill prepared for.
Yes.
If you're going to provoke a dude to becoming a werewolf, you want to make sure you're in the other room or something. I don't know. You want to make sure you're well protected, and he then goes on to do the same or similar thing to the Russian ballerina.
Yeah.
But he sneaks in a sneaky little kiss as well. He's just like, while I've got a pin down, potentially turn to werewolf, maybe I'll just give it, not sharing saliva or whatever.
No, don't settle well. Don't do that.
But I'll have a quick pash anyway.
Yeah, so they bring on about the transformation. Oh yeah, so when they do the strobe light, and there's all these weird kind of explosions that happen. Thilo goes through a transformation, and he tries to attack Harry. They manage to fend him off. He's bitten, and that's the bit where he gets. It looks like he's been bitten. He says, there was no saliva transferal bullshit. But then that's to the point where they discover the stripes on Thylo's back, and they conclude that this is some kind of mutated version, human hybrid wolf with the Tasmanian tiger, which is
because he's already looked at the picture and said, "Oh, that's the founding father," or whatever it is, and you almost start to feel sorry for the poor bloke. Like he starts off as this redneck bush, commune rapist guy, and then he's just this, half Tasmanian tiger dude lying on the floor, having just been flashed.
Yeah, sorry, that tickled my fancy, that sentence. Okay, so yeah, you're right. There is a bit. That's the only time we do feel sympathetic for him, I think, because he doesn't redeem himself in any way, does he? As the movie transpires, you kind of feel like he does for a period, and then he just turns into a twat at the end. Again, Sharp. That's the friend's name. I've finally written it in the notes. So Harry and his friend Sharp have a disagreement about what they should do. American officials tell Harry that they plan to wipe out the species, this werewolf species, and they also mention that the history goes way back. It's like they were aware of this for years, but they've never had any proof until now. And now they've got the proof, they're going to kill them all.
Yeah. They're aware of their value, they're aware of their scientific value, but they're like, nah, stuff that, kill them. Yeah,
kill them. Who gives a shit? So of course Harry doesn't like that. He wants to steal more pashes with the Russian ballerina. So he helps Olga and Philo escape. And then we kind of are sort of rejoined with Jerboa and Donnie. Remember them? Yeah, the two young couple that were running.
Sort of leads.
Yeah, they were in the bush somewhere with their little wolf baby. We have this bit where the hunters are tracking them as well, and we're also introduced to these two guys called the Amiga team, who are like these crack shot kind of SAS dudes in army gear that kind of like are out to try and track them down too. So there's various people in pursuit of Jerboa at this period. Kendi turns up. Yay, Kendi. Turns up again, and he warns Jerboa. And he says to them that he's been visited by the Phantom. Okay, so this is going to be like another thread to this dodecahedron of a warped storyline that we're dealing with here. She seems to be okay with it. Weirdly, Donnie doesn't believe a Phantom exists. Then we have Kendi on his own, and he calls upon the Phantom. At which point he changes.
Yeah, I like that angle. It's a good angle with the Aboriginal, being possessed by a ghost or whatever. It's the Phantom. The
Phantom, as they call it. Yeah, I like that bit too. And then we are joined by an indigenous tracker, who's with the hunters. And I really liked his character too.
He was great.
He's just like
Jack or something.
Jack, yeah. And he's just so blunt and to the point. And
they offered to pay him more money to hunt this wolf, and he's like, I can't spend money. What's the use of money when you're dead?
Yeah.
So he just buggers off.
He's like, no,
fair enough, mate.
I ain't doing it. So I like that. Very small role, but very, very comical and blunt and honest, which was kind of refreshing when you're dealing with a film that's so warped and bizarre. Yeah, so the hunters decide to go off anyway, but at which point they are picked off one by one by the Kendi Phantom wolf creature that we kind of see.
Can I just say it's nice to actually see one of the wolves killing people, because usually they just die at the drop of a hat.
Yes.
They're the weakest wolves I've ever seen in a werewolf movie, ever. And then this has been the running theme throughout 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah.
They just get shot by normal bullets and they die, and that's kind of it. Which is not a bad angle, but it's not very scary.
No. But in this sequence, he doesn't. He gets attacked
towards the end, yeah.
While he's attacking, but he kind of goes a bit kind of mental, doesn't he? And kind of really kind of tears into this kind of group of hunters in a quite a cool, like there's a lot of POV stuff as the wolves attacking these redneck kind of hunters that are like, yeah, it's quite funny. I thought it was kind of a cool moment. And then we're joined back again by after that sequence, we're joined back by Harry, Olga, and Farlow as they find Kendi, who's lying on a rock. And then at which point Jabot and Donnie also turn up at said rock, and we have Kendi kind of saying the Phantom took him, and then he passes away. There's a bit of a kind of sad moment there, like.
But before he does that, she's like, "You're going to turn into a river, and a tree, and then a mountain," and he's like, "No, I'm just going to die," and then he goes. I love it. It's brilliant. You expect him to be all traditional, and he's like, "No, I'm just going to die."
Yeah, I love it. No, that's right. He was a refreshing character, I have to admit. Yeah, and as you said, one of the highlights within the film.
Yeah.
But then, like, weirdly, Farlow walks off, doesn't he? There's a bit where they have a bit of an interaction, and like he has a bit of a coming together with Donnie, almost like a bit of a what would you call it, like a alpha male standoff, and then Farlow just walks off on his own, and then we revealed the Omega team come across the burnt corpse of what I presume is Kendi.
It is, but it's got boobs, so I don't know.
Oh, maybe not.
It is him though, I think. But there's another one next to him, so I don't know who that is.
Okay, so it's very odd. Again,
yeah,
odd again, because at which point the burnt wolf corpse thing comes back to life and it attacks the Omega team, who in return just pulverize it with a machine gun.
Because it's a howling werewolf. Even when they're dead, they're easy to kill.
Yeah.
Like I was hoping for zombie werewolf corpse stuff.
That would have been kind of cool.
That would have been cool.
Yeah, but they quickly kill it, don't they?
Of course.
Doesn't take long. Not without one of them being bitten though, and attacked. What was I going to say? So then, at which point now we join Farlow again, and it's his turn to call upon the Phantom. And he changes as well. And he goes on the attack, and he ends up killing one of the Omega team outside the tent. At which point the other one manages to set off a bazooka just as the Phantom kind of werewolf creature is coming into the tent. And there's this huge explosion. So essentially he kills the Farlow Phantom creature and himself in the process.
So what do you think about that scene?
Yeah, it was like, it felt like it's just an easy way to just kind of get rid of people in in this plot sequence, so that our leads aren't being pursued anymore by anyone. It's like you've gotten rid of, and it was weird. Like, what does that mean? So what? Was Farlow making the ultimate sacrifice to try and stop? It was odd. Again, using that word, odd. Yeah, and the creature itself was a bit shit in that bit as well, from memory.
Yeah. Yeah, it just comes in flapping away like a Muppet werewolf.
Yeah.
But yeah, considering she ran away from him, they seem to reconcile pretty quickly. And even the fact that the Russian has nicked off with Stasius. Yeah. He doesn't seem too bothered by that either. Being an alpha male, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to nip off into the woods and turn into something else.
Considering also, yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Because considering he was, like, at the very beginning, he seemed to be, it's when he's just about, in the hospital scene, where he's all wired up before the strobe kind of transformation sequence where we get a bit of background to his life. Because they kind of say it's almost like he's saying that he knew he would be mated with this Russian ballerina. His mum told him. It was like almost like a premonition that was going to happen. And yet for him to turn his back on all of that and not really give a shit, it is just kind of destroyed everything that we were told in the lead up to that, which is kind of interesting again.
One thing we haven't mentioned is his currency. Doesn't he offer like a Walkman or something? There's these great moments at the start where he's I'll buy you a Walkman, and then when Donnie chases after, he's like, I'll give you a CD player or something, or a CD. I don't know what the director writers. I don't know how he meets women, but offering them music isn't the best way of meeting her.
Check out my stereo. He does that a lot. I mean, you can't see, people listening can't see what I'm doing, but he does that kind of whole anyway, head thing. All right, so where are we now? So his father's dead. The Amiga team are wiped out, and then we join Olga, Harry, Donnie, and Jerboa as they settle down with their baby in the bush. Olga and Harry also have their own baby,
which is weird because they suddenly cut to them having a baby. It's like, are they playing with the kid?
They're playing.
Is it their kid?
No, So originally they are playing with the kid as he's growing up, but then they have their own baby and they're playing with that kid too. So so there's a bit of a transition of time going through there. Then we cut to what reckon what was it? 5 years later.
15. I think it's like 15.
Not quite at that point. It's like about 5 years later, and that's when Donnie and Jerboa leave to go with their son back to the city. They decide they're not going to stay in the bush anymore. They're going to leave. So the boy's about like 5 or 6 when they decide to go.
Right.
So they leave, and they Harry and Olga and their kid stay in the bush. Then we get the passing of time again, and you're right. It's about like 15 years later or something.
Yeah, okay.
And their daughter is now grown up, and at which point Sharp pays a visit, and he says the Pope has declared werewolf kind not evil.
Yeah.
I so tried to say that with a straight face.
I know.
Yeah. No, I'm being serious. That's what Sharp is telling everyone, and so werewolf kind and humankind were led to believe can live in existence together.
But how many are there realistically? It makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Like if they're on the border of extinction and they're living out in the bush, and suddenly the Pope says, "Hey guys, it's all right." Does everyone just start popping out the woodwork and go, "Oh, by the way, I'm a werewolf and it's all right"?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, but it also makes it a bit more strange when we get to the climax of the movie. So we'll just put a pin in that for a moment, on that thought of the Pope saying everything's okay, werewolf kind's not evil. Because then we go to 8 years later. Harry is still a lecturer, and Jerboa's son pays him a visit. He's now like, I don't know, Mr. Hollywood hunk jock kind of looking guy. And we learn that Jerboa and Donnie have broken into Hollywood. She, a famous actress, and he, a director. And then we get our climax of the film, which is an awards ceremony, and it's hosted by Dame Edna Everage. And we find out that Jerboa wins Best Actress award. At the time this is all happening, Harry and Olga are watching in some kind of swanky kind of
pseudo-futuristic
very
house.
white house, as it's because they're watching the event live unfolding. Unfortunately, when Jerboa goes to accept the award, all the camera flashes are going off as they're taking photos of her, and she then
which would be the first time ever.
Which goes to the point we were talking about earlier as well, because in the lead up, so when she's announced, we're getting or is it when we're told about her being a famous Hollywood actress, there's all these kind of still photos of her over the passing of time, capturing moments, and you're like, well, surely that has, at some point, they would have had a camera flash to take the picture. Anyway, we'll
exactly.
Sweep that one under the carpet.
Yeah.
So anyway, she gets the award, and all these camera flashes are going off, and it sets the transformation process, and she transforms into the werewolf, much to the horror of everyone watching.
And you can tell they're horrified because they use a fisheye lens.
Yes.
To make everything look really distorted and weird.
And Dame Edna Average doing her kind of really OTT kind of almost like comical commentary, but in shock kind of response to what's going on. But like, and so everyone's kind of horrified by what's going on. But didn't you find, like, even like Harry and Olga, as they're watching on the TV, there's a close up of their reaction as they're going, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. It's all going to go wrong for them." But apart from Sharp, there's a weird, like, again, an odd moment, right, where we see Sharp also sitting at home. I think he's having a cup of tea or something, but he's laughing his head off at it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and it cuts to a weird picture behind him of the Tasmanian tiger. I forgot about that bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, is he a werewolf, and it's all part of his plan to get werewolves exposed, and that's why he put her in the limelight, or...
I don't know. It just, that I really did not get. I mean, there's a lot of things not to get around this film.
Yeah.
But that one really stood out to me. I was like, I don't know what that's saying. What's the decision process behind that?
And it's a pretty non-Hollywood ending as well, because after they've been in Hollywood for a while, they just turn into complete dicks.
They do.
Like,
what does
they hate each other, and
they've been really, they've been really nasty to each other, aren't they, Donnie and Chaboa? And he just goes, just save all that energy for the film.
Yeah,
they're real, dicks, as you said. So that's how the film ends, not without having that last little cameo of Hitchcock, director dude, just going cut, and the film snapping to black.
Which is disappointing, because the end credits of these movies so far have been amazing.
Yeah, we had burger sizzling for 6-7 minutes on a griddle.
Amazing,
awesome. And then and then we had 15 cuts of boob flashes in the end of the second one.
Again, playing the song for the 15th time.
Yeah, loved that song.
Amazing.
That's it. That's how it ends. So, if people have followed us on our discussions around this, yes, it was as convoluted and as crazy as we were trying to divulge and discuss and dissect around that. It was probably being one of the messiest of podcast dissections that we've undertaken. I think we can safely say that.
It's a bloodbath in here. There's chunks of werewolf everywhere.
Yeah, it's a bloody affair. But strangely, and I'm waiting for you to attack me on this comment, I ended up really liking this movie because it's that carnage. It's a train wreck, and you can't tear yourself away from it. And it's so Australian as well. It sits right into that kind of Ozploitation kind of period that Australian filmmakers were renowned for in the late 70s, and this slightly creeps into it with the early 80s.
Yeah, this was like a year after. This is like a year after Crocodile Dundee, I think.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. I do hate you for saying that.
And I'm fully. I want you to scathe me right now. I deserve to be ridiculed for that statement. But go on, Nick.
I have heard that there are fans of this movie, and I can understand people liking bad movies. Like, the second one, actually, I think is one of my favourites out of the three we've watched so far, just because it was batshit crazy, but there was some kind of plot thread,
right?
And had Christopher Lee, and it was a bit of fun, and had the horrible wipes, and these crazy moments of people looking to camera, and it was not a great film, but at least you can sort of follow the journey.
Yeah.
And then the journey would sometimes come to a dead end, or feel like something's been cut out, but at least something would keep going.
Yeah.
Whereas this was like a compilation tape, like a crappy mixtape of a few different films or a few different versions of a film that had been thrown into the pot and was expected to understand what's going on. I almost want to grab the director and sit down with him and watch it with him and go, what? Why? You know, because as a producer, you sometimes make things and you look at them afterwards and someone go, oh, mate, that bit doesn't make sense because I don't know what that shot's doing in there or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, cool, I understand that. I'll change that around.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, I would love for him to justify the meaning or the thinking, or maybe he was too close to it and he knew what the story was in his head, but he couldn't get it into the right order. I'd almost want to re-edit the film.
Yes.
And actually make it coherent, like drop massive chunks out of it. It would probably have a 5-minute running time, but I think there's a story in there, and if you tighten it up, you could almost have 3 separate films, or maybe 2.5.
Yes.
But yeah, as I wouldn't say it's a good bad movie,
right?
In my opinion.
Okay.
You're entitled to your opinion, and I get it. That's fine.
It's weird because normally I'm not a fan of the whole kind of good bad movie kind of reference, or a movie's either bad or it's good. I don't feel like there's a whole thing about look, it's so bad it's a good movie.
But you wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but you'd still enjoy it. I think that's what makes a good bad movie.
Yeah, okay. Because that's the thing. I came out, I weirdly liked it. It's I think it was so off the charts and like nothing I've seen before. But it was Australian through and through, and it didn't shy away from that. It just was like rubber stamped all over the place. If they could mention anything about Australia in it, it was in there. And,
but sorry, just on that note, because that's one thing that kind of fell flat for me with it being so Australian and it's Australian take, and there's Siberian werewolf, whatever, and she looks like a white wolf or an Arctic wolf or whatever. For the Australian take on it, she's got a pouch, but I expected more of like a kangaroo werewolf or something to differentiate it or make it ultimately Australian.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I got that. I feel like I got a different. I just got the same sort of werewolf, which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I realise that, and I don't think I agree with that, because I thought when I read the title, my instinct was, is this going to be like some kind of kangaroo wolf human hybrid thing? Not even wolf, like I don't know, what would you call it? A wereroo. I thought it was going to be something like that. When you read, to me, that's what a marsupial is. But I guess, Tasmanian devil is of the marsupial kind of species.
But that's Tasmanian tiger or whatever it was. Are they marsupials? Do they have pouches for their young? They look more like a. I'd have to look it up.
I'm going to look it up while we're talking, but you keep follow your train of thought with that for a second.
Well, for me, when it's a marsupial, I thought it would be a marsupial, and I think the Tasmanian tiger, name, doesn't. I swear it's not a marsupial.
Yeah, I always thought it was just like almost like a dingo. Was my understanding of it.
Yeah, that's it.
Like a dingo with a dog, but it had
with a massive jaw.
Had a very pronounced snout, didn't it? With I can't see anything in there that says. Oh no, here we go. I'm reading it here. It says it was a medium to large sized dog, except for its stiff tail and abdominal pouch, reminiscent of a kangaroo.
Holy shit! I did not know that.
Yeah. So and they describe it as a marsupial.
Wow.
It's classed as a mammalia, so obviously a mammal. Infraclass marsupialia, so a marsupial.
I guess you can say it had whatever once it's extinct. Oh yeah,
yeah.
Had 2 heads
and wings
and wings. That'd be good. Yeah. Right. Okay. So it's a marsupial. Okay.
Yeah. Technically, yeah. But going back to what we were saying before we went off on a similar tangent to the movie, is that it's when I read the title, I did have it in my head about these kind of weird kangaroo kind of thing, like pretty much, in Tank Girl. Remember Tank
Yeah,
Girl?
that's the sort of thing I imagined. Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't that.
no,
So
it just looked like a werewolf.
yeah,
It
you're
just
right.
looked like a werewolf.
Yeah, they could have maybe have done something a bit more different with it.
At least have it jump or something.
Yeah,
But no, you're right. It's I'm getting
but if it's based
mixed
on
up.
that,
It's not a kangaroo. It's
no.
a Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah. So which case it? But then they could have emphasised more characteristics of a Tasmanian tiger. I do like that whole idea of it, it playing with the fact, because it's a supposedly extinct animal, and that playing with that, knowing when something's dead like that, you can kind of take liberties with why it became extinct. And have this kind of the whole kind of undercover kind of conspiracy thing to wipe them out because they were of a weird species. There's a lot in there that you could really imagine it being kind of redeveloped, with a decent plotline thread through it, and playing with that mythology a little bit more in today's standards. But I don't think you're ever going to get any movie that's that batshit crazy. You're not going to get that kind of style within it. And like, to go back to your point, you said that you preferred Howling 2. I think I preferred this one. Like, to me, like, I felt like Moira made a hash of 2, and he kind of found his voice, for whatever that voice is. He found it in this one.
Fair enough, because I think it was so all over the place. I wasn't interested to see where it was going. Whereas with the second one, I thought, okay, well, I want to see what's going to happen here. They're on a mission to kill the bad guy, essentially.
Yeah.
Whereas with the third one, an alien could have come down and abducted them, and I'd be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense in this universe. Anything can happen, which would be nice. It's not something, you're right, you're not something you see in a Hollywood commercial movie anymore.
No.
Or at all, ever, in any film.
I think that's why I found it quite refreshing. I think I would recommend people watch this, bearing in mind that they're going to get something really messed up and crazy, but it is like nothing you've seen before. And to me, I'm somebody that likes, for good or ill, I like going to see something that is unexpected or different to the normal run of things, and this definitely does that. Obviously, if you were to criticise it, it's not a good film in any way, shape, or form. But I admire bravery of trying to push something out there that has never been seen or we will never see again.
Thank God.
Yeah. But like, okay, like I'll give you a for instance. I mean, it's a bit more. This director is kind of supposedly finding form again, but M. Night Shyamalan has gotten criticised for his movies over the years, and it's the same kind of thing. I echo that. So what I mean by that is like The Lady in the Water and The Village, and what was the one?
Didn't mind that.
And the other one, the Last Airbender period of his career, have been massively, massively criticised. And I had a conversation with Ant, who's one of our fellow podcasters, around this. And I said to him, like, can you name me any other film director that's in the mainstream that is challenging himself and still pushes out movies that tell a try to tell a story or try and push things in a different direction that's different to what we've seen him do before, rather than going into, or I'm known for this, I'm going to stick to this shtick. Because, like, to me, every movie he's done has always been him trying to challenge himself as a director. And the thing with that is, any creative, is that you're going to challenge yourself, which is brave and that's artistic. But by doing that, you're not always going to have wins. You're going to fall down flat in your face. You're going to make a tit of yourself. but he kept picking himself up and trying to do something different again and challenging himself again. And that's what I was saying. That's why I admired him as a director. I'm not saying every film he's done is brilliant, because it's not been. I just admired like what he's been trying to do, and I know that was controversial at the time, but now it seems like he's finding form again with Split and The Visit the last couple of years.
See, I'm kind of the opposite. I agree with you, but I really like The Visit. That was great. And going back, I pretty much like almost everything he's done, apart from Lady in the Water. I couldn't get past. I think it was about the first 10 minutes, and there's a guy who's got one really muscly arm. Yeah, and I was like, this film's going to be nonsense. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But everything else, like even Last Airbender, I watched that with my kids, and it's great fun. There's lots of things jumping around and flashing colours and lights, and it's good fun. Yes, it's not an amazing movie, but still, it's definitely different for him, especially someone with such a unique style.
That's what I mean, that was my point, and if I wasn't clear, that's what I was meaning. Like, I don't think he made film to everyone's taste all the time. I think every time he's made a film, it's been something different that's challenging him in a different area. And he explores that and he pushes himself. Like The Happening was the other one, which critics completely panned. But essentially,
I didn't mind it.
Essentially, it's a modern day, The Day of the Triffids, right? So,
yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, he's often looking at, all right, what haven't we seen for a while? What kind of story can I explore? And that's why I admire him. I think, he's not always going to make the best films that's going to please everyone, but I think every time he is what I call a modern artist or director. He's not going to have wins left, right, and centre. But if you look at his canon of work, he's always pushing his boundaries and trying something new with it, and that is something that I think you got to appreciate.
And I think that there's not many people who aren't massive movie fans who could name a director's body of work as well as him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like people who aren't that movie savvy, I reckon they could at least list 5 of his films.
Yeah.
I didn't like Split myself. I thought it was well made. I just didn't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
You can read that review as well on soisitanygood.com. But
yeah.
The other films are okay.
I've not seen Split yet. I have to hold my hand up. I haven't watched that yet. I have watched The Visit though, and I liked that one. But yeah, going off the reviews for Split, particularly if you put Miles in a room, he loves that movie.
Split.
Yeah, he said it's the best film of the year so far.
What?
Yeah, serious.
Okay.
Have a chat with him. I should get you guys in a room. We'll do a podcast around that one.
I feel like funny. A bit of a contrarian sometimes. I don't do it deliberately by any means, but I didn't like Mad Max, and that's been a not popular opinion.
But that's why we're here, man. That's what we talk about these things. We're not going to make. We like M. Night Shyamalan are not going to make popular choices in our decisions sometimes, but at least we're here, we're making our voice known, and we're talking through things because we love movies.
Do you mean like liking The Howling 3?
Liking The Howling 3, which I like, which you don't, but that's fine,
Say it out loud. Say it out loud. Mate.
I like The Howling 3. Look, I just found it enjoyable. I thought it was a good film.
Yeah, you enjoyed it. Doesn't mean it's a good film, but you enjoyed it.
I think that's a good point there for us to kind of wrap things up, buddy.
Cool.
So that's the end of our discussions on what was Howling 3: The Marsupials. I recommend it. I think you should watch it. Maybe, you shouldn't condone taking drugs, but anyway, have a couple of spliffs maybe, and or don't. So feel like what the effects are if you were to take drugs without taking drugs by watching this film. And Nick, not so much of a fan. I guess before we sign out, pecking order, you're saying that you like 2, 1, then 3?
2, 1, 3 for me. Even though Joe Dante's great, I just enjoyed 2 because it was campy horror.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the first one was trying to be something else.
Right. Okay. See, I still at the moment say 1 is the better movie. but I go 1-3-2. I don't think Christopher Lee could save 2 as much as he tries. Cool, man. Well, that, as I say, concludes our Full Moon Sessions discussions on as we're delving through the Howling franchise, and we're going to do some more of that as we go through. I think there's like another 4 installments, so we'll come back and talk about Howling 4. Until then, thanks for joining me, Nick.
You're welcome, mate. Anytime.
And thank you out there for those that are listening. Until next time, keep an eye out for that full moon and crazy marsupials on the loose.
You're listening to the Surgeons of Horror podcast. Music supplied by Peter Nezik. For more discussions or podcasts, head over to surgeonsofhorror.com or head over to our Facebook and Twitter sites for the latest news and updates.